Oh, yeah, you are tuned to Anywhere the Needle Drops. Hey, folks, I am your host, Justin Flagle, and we have a fun episode for you. I am so excited about this one. I did my best not to fanboy out because in the Red Chuck studio today, we have The Accidentals. That's right, The Accidentals, one of the premier bands of Michigan music. Technically they are, down in Nashville now, much like Lindsay Lou and some of our other great Michigan artists, but we will always claim them as our own, as we discussed on the episode. But if you don't know The Accidentals, if you've been sleeping on them, please check them out. Do yourself a favor. They are so much fun. The albums are great. The live shows are amazing. They just showcase all the cool things Michigan has to offer. And yeah, so I got to hang out with Sav and Katie of The Accidentals, and man, we chatted about all sorts of fun things, including their upcoming projects, and it was so cool. I couldn't geek out during the interview. I had to keep it calm, keep it cool. So I'm geeking out now here on the intro. So Sav and Katie, if you hear this, just know that I held my own, but I'm letting it loose now. So at any rate, it was a really fun show. So I hope you enjoy this here interview with The Accidentals. So the Accidentals, welcome. This is very cool to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time. We've been doing this show a long time, and you guys have been on my radar for a while, so it's awesome to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Technically you're in Nashville now, but I had the same conversation with Lindsay Lou. I was saying, we always claim you all as our Michigan artists. You're Michigan for life. So
I would hope so. We did grow up there for like 20 years. And we come back every summer too, and our parents all still live there. And our drummers lives there for that matter. So yeah, we're very tied to Michigan. We're actually doing a tour in April throughout Michigan, and we're really looking forward to it because it's all of our favorite venues like the Arc and Midtown and Bell's Brewing Company. And it's just going to be a nice Michigander vacation.
Yeah.
Back to our hometown, Traverse City.
Definitely. Yeah. I'll be at that Bell show. I saw you guys were playing there and I love that room. So
yeah, us too.
Yeah. Yeah. And this will actually be coming out before that. So that way, hopefully all our listeners in the Michigan area can check out the shows. So
yeah, cover art tour.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I was at the Michigan, what was it? The Michigan Showcase at the State Theater a few months back.
Oh yeah. Was that like the Halloween show?
Let's see. Was that Halloween? Maybe that was Halloween.
I mean, I was dressed up as Ken, and Kate was Alan, and Caitlin was the only Barbie on stage. Yeah, it had to be. That had to be a Halloween thing.
Yeah, Lindsay Lou was there. Patty Pacheco was there. Jordan Hamilton was there.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. How did that show feel? I mean, that was just an amazing lineup of Michigan gold right there.
It was a lot of fun.
It was really fun. Yeah, I think we obviously dressed up as Barbie, but we did like a couple. we did this thing to ourselves where we get really ambitious, and so for that show we had met up like for load-in. So I think Sav was like driving in from somewhere. I was already in Kalamazoo. I was like co-writing with Jordan Hamilton that day, and then like Caitlin drove in from Detroit. Like Patty came in from somewhere else, and we're like, okay, guys, we're gonna work up a cover of Indigo Girls, Closer to Fine, because I've always loved Indigo Girls, and it was like so like brought up in that movie a lot. And then we're like, we're also gonna do like a 8-minute like mashup of this like Ken song that happens during a big montage where like they're all dancing and like fighting with toys and stuff in the movie. And somehow we decided to like work all that up during soundcheck and then tested live for the show.
It worked.
And it was amazing. It was really fun.
You know what? I was standing right there, and it definitely did work. It was a wonderful thing to see. So, yeah, that was just such a fantastic show. I mean, I am a long time advocate for the Michigan music scene, and I came back from that show. Just everyone that I couldn't convince to go with me, I was just like, did you, I mean, you have no idea what you missed. I was like, when someone sends you a YouTube video or something like that friend homework, and you're like, and I got to look at this, I was that guy, but like all the videos that I took at the show, because I just wanted to show people how great that whole lineup was.
That was super fun.
It was really good.
Yeah. So you've got the cover art tour going on right now. What else is on the docket for you guys?
So the cover art tour is happening in late April, and then we have another album already ready to go after that called Timeout 3. Timeout is like a project that we have where we have all these co-writes with people who inspired us to become writers. So it's like all these Hall of Fame songwriters like Beth Nielsen Chapman and Dar Williams, Roger Cook, Holly Near, Tom Paxton, Gary Bird, Georgia Middleman, Mary Bragg, like all these different co-writes. We compile some of our favorite co-writes onto albums. And so we've had Timeout 1, Timeout 2, and now we have Timeout 3, which we actually went and recorded with Mary Bragg. She produced it, and she co-wrote one of the songs on it. So we have that album ready to go. We're excited to put it out and do another tour for that as well sometime in the fall or the winter time. And so yeah, that's what's on the docket. And then we also have a children's album that we've been working on with Tom Paxton, he's just an incredible legacy writer in the folk world. He's really a heavy hitter there. And we write with him over Zoom every Monday, have been for past 4 years. Like since the pandemic, we met him over like our booking. We were on the same booking agency for a while, and we used to have these Zoom calls, and we met him through that. And so we've been writing with him nonstop, basically. He's super prolific. He's like in his 80s and we're in our late 20s. And so the age gap is like of 60 years. It doesn't really matter when it comes down to the writing. There's lots to talk about that shared experience. So I just find that really cool. But yeah, so we've been working on those projects as well in the background. And our drummer, Caitlin Coral, is also joining the ranks as just a permanent faculty on that. And so she's been down here recording with us for the past couple of weeks as well. We're super excited to have her on board. Yeah.
Next week we're doing not next week, next month.
Oh my
God.
God.
Doing some shows with a youth orchestra called the Kaboom Collective, who we had the chance to work with a couple years ago or last year.
2022.
2022.
That's when I got COVID. Yeah, because I got COVID the day before that tour was supposed to start.
And they're an amazing project led by conductor Liza Grossman out of Cleveland, and we were able to do a whole album with them where they reimagined songs of ours from like throughout our catalog and did their own arrangements and recorded like full orchestra, so like string section, horns, winds, percussion, and so we're gonna reunite with them again for some shows in April to play songs off that album, and then we're also gonna be working on a new project with them hopefully next year.
Oh, all right.
So we're in works for that. So lots of, poor Caitlin, we're like, hey, Caitlin, can you learn all these covers, the reimagined album, the timeout songs, and this? And
I mean, but we're also doing a lot to ourselves. Like at the same time, we're doing a lot of side artist work and session work. We've been cutting sessions on strings down here in Nashville, like since we moved down here, and the work only gets busier every year, which is a great problem to have. So we actually did like over 100 sessions last year. I counted. And we're looking at doing more this year too. So yeah, it's busy, but it's the kind of work that we love doing, and we're constantly growing and learning new stuff. It's been really, really great.
That's awesome. I mean, that is the work of that's the life of a working musician right there that you described. So you're doing it right. So
yeah, we love it. I had to learn pedal steel this year for the first time ever. And I also like really hunkered down on banjo. And then recently I had to learn flat picking acoustic guitar. So I'll be calling Billy Strings up and getting some advice later on this month. That's the best part about living down here and having all these other Michigan musicians is that we do rely on each other a little bit. It's kind of great.
Yeah, it almost seems like there's like a little collective. I don't know if it's physically located or just creatively, there. But yeah, it does seem like everyone I talk to that's hit that Nashville scene from Michigan, you just all sort of take care of each other, right?
Yeah, it's kind of almost like a Midwestern coalition. And like I've not only do I like rely on some people for help, like their friend Alex Stradell from the band South for Winter is a Michigander, and he helps rebuild pedal boards for us sometimes. But also we have like these big barbecues at my house where I just invite a bunch of musicians over, Michigan or otherwise, and we all just hang out. And that's kind of a great part of living down here is there's a community of musicians who are going through the same stuff that you are and living on the opposite schedule of everybody they love too. And so when we have a moment off the road and we can hang out, it's actually really nice to have just a community of people who get it. Oh, hello. Yeah, it's nice.
We have a cat that's entered the conversation here. So
this is Nashville. He's actually a Michigan cat. I got him at Traverse City Opera House, where we're going to be playing in April. It was Miriam Pico is a great musician up there, and she had this TV show that she hosted briefly called Picnic at the Opera. And she would invite these musicians to come play a couple songs, and then they could pick the sponsor for the event. And so we chose the Humane Society, and they tried to auction this guy off. And because it was a music event, his name was Nashville. It was perfect. But nobody wanted him. He's like a 14-pound black cat. So I took him home, and I've had him ever since. It's been over 10 years now that we've been together. And Yeah, he didn't know he was going to actually move to Nashville, so now it's mega confusing. But
That's
that's
awesome.
Michigan cat story.
That's great. And not the first pet interruption we've had in this show. You can't see her, but my dog Alice is lying down there on the floor, just passed out. I had the opportunity to, I don't know if you know the musician Roger Klein.
Oh yeah.
But I followed him since I was 14 years old and had the pleasure of having him on my show, on the show twice. And the second time it was remote like this. And I was still pretty kind of nervous and like a huge fan of this guy. And we get the interview rolling, we just get it rolling, and Alice just starts barking like crazy, interrupts everything, disrupts the whole thing. But of course, Roger's a dog guy, so he couldn't be more gracious about it. Then we ended up spending like half an hour talking about our dogs. So it all worked out.
That's great. I really wish I had a dog right now. My dog passed away this year, and so we've been kind of
sorry.
Oh, he was old. He was really old, but like we're ready for these cats were raised by dogs basically, so we're ready for another dog.
Yeah, they're the greatest. Oh, you know what? I probably should have done this at the beginning, but since usually when I have two guests on, if you could just say your name so the listeners know who's speaking when.
So my name's Sav, and I have Nashville with me. So if you hear like rubbing, like friction sounds against the microphone, that's his face, marking that it's his.
And my name's Katie, and I don't think you can see this, but I have palm trees swaying in the wind and waves behind me thanks to Zoom's virtual backgrounds.
I do see the palm tree and the waves. It looks very nice right now. So yeah.
I'm feeling that tropical.
Is there? Sorry, this is a sidebar, but is there snow in Michigan right now?
No, and this is not a sidebar at all. This is a conversation that happens with all my Michigan guests that are not currently here. So no, it's been so weird. We had snow, and then it was 70 degrees the other day.
Oh my God.
As Michiganders, 70 degrees in February is a little strange. So. Now, the most snow I've seen recently is I attended a music event up in the Upper Peninsula called Thunder Snow. And I finally saw snow when I was traveling up there in northern Wisconsin on my way. And finally, there was snow on the ground that I got to enjoy. But we've had next to nothing here this year. So it's been pretty terrible. Yeah.
Dang, that is terrible.
Yeah. I miss the days of hiking through the woods with the snow-covered trees and everything, and heading out to the dunes, and the lakes haven't been frozen over. It's just been a real disappointment. So
that's probably my least favorite part of living in Nashville is how hot it gets down here and how there's never snow on the ground. So when I first moved here, I had like this really weird, it was like an opposite seasonal depression where like all my regular indicators of winter are now gone. So I was like really wigged out, like circadian rhythm totally thrown off. Yeah.
I'm so depressed. It's too sunshiny.
Literally, yeah. I was like, this doesn't feel right.
I can't wear my cardigans. I
can't wear my flannels. No, for real though.
Only a Michigander would understand that plight. That's for sure. That's great. So you're talking about this, you're doing this children's album, and then you're doing this work with the orchestra. And that's one thing I appreciate about what you do, because, of course, I imagine you probably are similar in thinking with me that genre is kind of a little bit bullshit. And it's really just about good music. But I love how well you all extend out. And then even at that show in Kalamazoo, when Patty jumped, was up there with you playing, and, things were a little more rocked out and everything like that. I mean, so what is your approach when you're making music? I mean, what informs the sound you go for on an album or a track or anything?
Yeah, we started engineering and producing our own records recently. It's only recently that we came back and started producing with Mary Bragg for the co-write album. But before that, especially during the pandemic, we kind of pivoted to start making our own music very hands-on, just because it is hard to serve the song in the best way and to realize what you're hearing. Like, it's hard to actually put that down in a recording and have it represent the live sound. We've always had an issue where we couldn't really get our live shows one-to-one with the records. Like the energy of the live shows wasn't really coming through. And for a while that worked. It was great to have like this other side of us, I guess, but we really wanted it to start sounding one-to-one. And so making music, like I guess the process is that typically Katie or I will write the song by ourselves. Usually it's like a therapy dump. Like after tour, we'll go to our respective corners and just kind of process some of those feelings onto paper. And then we'll come together as a 3-piece and arrange it. Recently, because we're such a long distance band, one of the process formats has been to send like Logic file. It'll be like, well, I'll send a song and then I'll send like the harmonies broken out to everybody and then I'll just ship it out and then everybody will listen to it and come up with their own ideas and either ship it back or when we come together, there will be these arrangement ideas worked up. Part of that is just due to the fact that we have limited time together. But also it makes things like kind of faster because everybody's already got ideas that they're bringing to the table. So that's kind of the way that it works now. But as far as genre, you're right. Like, I think that's sort of the way of the industry now too, is that we're coming up with like new ones. I watched this video the other day of Fantano interviewing Brad Taste in Music on YouTube, and they were like, Brad had to guess at like Jeopardy style or trivia style, like which genre was the real one out of like 4 really insane sounding genre names that none of them sounded real. And that kind of was exemplary of where we're at with genre. We're like, it's at this point you could make up any string of words and you'd probably find like somebody who fits that. But at that point, like everybody's going in a genre bending direction. It doesn't really matter. So the purpose, I think, when you're writing music is to, 1, tell the truth in some capacity. And then 2, like make sure that whatever you're doing serves the song instead of trying to serve some like random thing that isn't really going to matter in the long run. Or an album, you know, if like you're telling a narrative story, then yeah, serve the album. But you know, do what feels right for the song. Don't think about boxing it into one thing or another just because you feel like it needs to fit somewhere. I think that style is going out of fashion.
Yeah, for a long time we basically fleshed out our songs live before we recorded them, and I think that was the trial and error process because of that instant feedback from an audience. Like if the energy dipped down or like we didn't feel like it was locking in, then we might like change instruments, you know, like especially as, you know, a 3-piece for a long time, you know, Sav and I would change rhythm instruments, like whether a song be acoustic guitar heavy or cello heavy or electric guitar and bass. And, you know, we would test it out over, I mean, we were touring hard for a couple of years between like 2015 and 2019. It was like 200-ish shows a year. So we would like really get tight with that, and that would become like the basis of the song. And so what's interesting is when Sav mentioned we started recording ourselves, it was really like during lockdown up until now. And so we've been kind of like honing in on how to create a song that has never been played live before. And that's been a really interesting flip. Like, you know, sometimes we'll just get, I mean, we love, at the Accidentals Incorporated, we love a good Google Doc. We love a good Google Sheet. So we make a lot of, you know, pre-production docs and have references. And, you know, I know like there are some songs where we like on Vessel, we referenced like Phoebe Bridgers, and we would like listen until we got that exact guitar tone and then we'd record it. Or like,
we used to have like color maps, production color maps, where we would like literally draw a line on a piece of paper. And then like I did this for Closer to Fine by the Indigo Girls. When we were recording our song Remain the Same off Time Out 2, we engineered and produced that one ourselves. And so we drew out a line and we broke out like every instrument that came in, and each instrument was like color coded. And then you would like mark where all the instruments were present on the line and show how they build the song production wise and arrangement wise. And then we kind of tried to like put the same color map onto a different song and see like what were the analogous instruments, how can we build it like this song did while still keeping it different and unique enough. And that's like part of the process too. There's like a million different ways you can go about it, but Kate's right. We're very like organized, and right now even we just got done recording ourselves for our cover art album, And we had like a checklist in an Excel spreadsheet where everybody could mark, okay, we got this done today. We need to do these things today. And like, I mean, we recorded that thing in 3 days and we had 6 songs to do. So it had to be like very tight. Like it had to be, everybody knew what they were going to do today kind of thing. But yeah, we're really organized when it comes to the arrangement process at this point.
Yeah. Are there any, have you developed muscles, through those COVID lockdown times that are playing into that now?
Yeah, I would say like before COVID, we knew how to set up all of our own. I mean, we could set up a PA system in like 15 minutes, had done it before. We've been doing it since we were 16, and I've got a certificate in audio engineering. And when you're touring 250 days a year and you have to repair stuff on the fly and set stuff up on the fly and help your engineer set it up on time because you have 13 instruments, like at that point, enough to like figure out where things get set up in a room and like how to test reflection and like how to take frequencies out that are annoying and like how to really listen to the frequency range of a song. Like for instance, we had a song on the cover of our album where I was on mandolin and Kate was on cello, and typically Caitlin was on a cajon kit, but we decided to move to the drum kit. And at that point, we lost all of our body in the song. So I had to switch instruments. I had to go to classical guitar because we wanted something to bridge that gap and fit the right frequency range and also not compete with the cello. And it's just like all these like little things that you wouldn't really think about, like when you're doing intentional listening. That kind of muscle, I think we developed just from touring together for so many years and being really hands-on and DIY with it. But then during the pandemic, we learned so much too. Like when we built our first studio in Northern Michigan, it was in my attic. So we like flipped up a mattress and then we like took all of our CD boxes that hadn't been sold and we built them into partition walls and created like a drum kit room, like in the corner of the attic. And, had to thumbtack blankets to the ceiling and like really intentionally listen to reflection sounds and like figure out like where resonant frequencies were in the room and stuff. And like all of that, we'd never really done that before by ourselves. And so that was all process, and figuring out which mics sound good on different instruments. I know one thing that we got really good at was figuring out guitar tones and like how to get the right sound through the amp with the right mic and sounding good. All of that was like kind of a game changer for us. But now that we're in the studio down here, this is my house studio and we recorded down here for a while, but like now we're feeling confident enough about it, and we learn something new every day, but we feel confident enough to like get good sounds. And with the 3 of us working together, like it really makes it so much easier than if it was just all on one person, because we all know what we're listening for and we have like a shared goal. It's been really great to execute the music in a way that have been hearing it for a long time. We've had like, not to go on a tangent, but like we've had experiences when we were like 16 and on where you get stuck in a studio working environment where somebody is condescending to you, especially like a young woman, like a teenager, like people are condescending or don't think that like you're capable or that you have the ear or anything. And then like sometimes people will also like exercise their own will over your music, or almost like hold it hostage. And we've had all those things happen to us in the past. And at this point, like, I think we've been through enough bullshit to know how to stand our ground and just be like, no, actually, that's not how this is going to go down today. Even in live sound environments, we've done the same thing where it's like, no, actually, we do know what a DI is and an IEC, and we know the difference between an XLR and a 1/4 inch. And like, yeah, actually, you can't talk to us like that. Like, this is what we do for a living. This is our job. So, and we don't always have to break out that side of us, but it's good to know how to do that when you need to. So
yeah, and that was a big difference from this year of like, when we finally got the chance to sit at the console and comp our own vocals and had that control of like, wow, this is how I want it to sound. Like I can, and also the freedom of having the time, Justin, you were talking about like when we first started recording in lockdown that, we started growing these muscles of like, oh, we can do whatever we want now, like, yay. But then I kind of had to unlearn the perfectionist side, because once I had the opportunity to like dive deep into that, Well, one, I learned a lot about singing and vocal technique and everything, because when you're listening to all of your takes again and again, you really like have an ear for figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Like,
and the
what
things
will
that
come back to haunt you in the mix, even if it's like explosion on the mic or like the way you're singing that syllable or something. Like, you listen for that, but you know, you also listen for the emotional side too, and are the lyrics coming through? And man, like, separating the perfectionist side from actually like just letting it be what it is something that I've been trying to learn this year. So that has been really helpful. Like Sav mentioned, for this covers album that's coming out in April, we only had 3 days to do that. So, and it was as live as possible. I mean, we were pretty much doing takes. Sav would be in the kitchen, like I would be in the living room, and we would do like 3 takes and cut it at that and try to keep it pretty true. And same with working with a producer again, working with Mary. That was like a big leap of faith to get back into a studio and kind of be hands off, you know, and let someone else sit at the console. Like,
we did 7 songs in 5 days there too. So it was the same like go, go, go energy, but also like do it in a way that doesn't feel rushed, so that way you can do it right, which is a hard balance. But I also found like in our own recording, like doing, I call it the take 5 method, because you just do 5 takes of whatever you're doing, 3 to 5 takes. And then you have enough there to comp. Like, I promise you do. You may not think at the time. You might
it's
need
probably
to take, like,
in the second take.
It is, but you need to take like 20 minutes to 24 hours to away from it, and then come back, and the comp is there. But the more you sit down and just like hyper fixate yourself into just this horrible feeling of like, I'm never going to get this right. Like, that is so easy for people who are perfectionists like Kate and I to do. So that was something I learned in the pandemic too, is like, just take 5 takes and leave it alone, and then come back and mess with it. But, you know, don't, like, it is there. And the rawness, like, sometimes is what makes it better than doing it so good that it's robotic, you know?
Yeah,
that'll be what separates us from AI.
Definitely.
Like,
there you go.
when to mess up, you know?
Well, and you say perfectionist, but what I think the word actually is artist. I mean, we're all, so I'm a writer, and if I don't have someone telling me that I need to deliver this at a certain time, if it's just a project for me, I mean, I'll never finish editing it or trying to tweak it. You know, it's always, there's always something more you can do it. And you know, speaking of that recording process, I'm not a musician, but I'm currently doing a documentary on a musician in this area with on their recording process and then their upcoming tour with it. And so I'm seeing in real time that thing happening in the room where, you know, there's conversations going on where it's like, okay, I think we've got it. And we could do another one, but I think we've got it. And maybe we need to accept that in our hearts and trust that and just move on. And it's, as a non-musician especially, it's been very enlightening to see that.
That's real. That's real. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, and like you said, you know, I mean, obviously you have a little more control in, you know, maybe in the recording realm, but you can't always control who's behind that console when you go into a live situation. I mean, you want to hope it's someone professional.
Well, we hired somebody full time to do that.
Oh, boom! There you go. All right.
His name's Carter Furland. He works at the Frank Center for the Arts in Kalamazoo. That one's in Marshall, but yeah, he lives in Kalamazoo. And we did that because we have so many instruments and because we have a specific blend, and it is worth having some control over that. Like, granted, like, there are some situations where you don't get that, you know, like sometimes Carter, he's got like something else booked. And so we do rely on a sound engineer at that point. And that is like the ultimate leap of faith trust thing, because it's really hard to nail down, you know, 13 instruments and 3 vocals and a drum kit quickly. Especially because we change every song. So it's, that's something we did to try and fix that. Was to hire Carter to do it full time. Yeah. And he's been great.
You never know like where you're going to show up. I mean, it could be an outdoor festival with a 15-minute changeover, or it could be like a big boomy like concert hall, or it could be like a teeny little club where like, man, the variables change. There's so much out of your control when you're on the road. Speaking of things out of your control.
Well, I was also going to say, like, when we typically tour, at least for our particular touring, we have a van and a trailer. We typically hire a tour manager, because that's the other thing is like there's so much going on with like the travel schedule being like, okay, we got to drive 6 hours, then we got to get there, we got to make time to eat, we got to load in all this stuff, we have to sound check it, it's going to take like 3 hours, and then we're going to like have to change quickly, set up merchandise, do a VIP meet and greet, play the actual show, which only takes an hour and a half out of the entire like 9-hour day, and then drive another 3 hours to the next venue and like load all the instruments into the hotel because you don't want them to get broken from the cold or stolen overnight, which happened. So, you know, we're like, all these things have to be helped and coordinated by a tour manager. So it's typically us, the three of us in the band, the tour manager, and the sound engineer are the touring crew. And sometimes we've had like a lighting engineer or an opening act or, you know, a monitor engineer. We've had like all different types of iterations, but typically that's the core group of 5. So I do want to like shout out the people who help us like make that happen because it's not a fun job.
In the April shows, we will have support from an amazing songwriter named Danny Nichols from the UK.
Yeah, she's opening.
Just moved to Nashville, so she'll be opening up. She's like, just plays really beautiful, like soulful Americana, like full music, and yeah, so she'll be opening up all those shows and hanging in the van with us.
Awesome. Very cool.
Lucky her.
So I hate to have to ask this, but do you still at this point of your careers run into, you know, a lot of that pushback based on you being female musicians? Has that improved at all?
I mean, like you get your moments. Like last night or 2 nights ago, we went to go watch Eric Gales, who's like one of the best guitar players of our time. Like absolutely, I'll die on that hill. He's amazing. And my drummer Caitlin and I were leaving the venue, and we had just both bought. He's got like this custom overdrive pedal called the Raw Dog. So we both bought one and had him sign them. And we were walking out of the venue, and this guy was like, "What are those?" And we were like, "Oh, they're pedals, you know, for our guitars." And he's like, "You guys play?" And we were like, I was like, "No, we're going to put them in the kitchen where we belong." Like, "No, I'm going to use them to sweep up my countertop." Like, what do you mean? Yeah, of course we play. I literally was just like, dude, it's Nashville. We all play. Like, it's just like moments like that are more funny to me now than they are like discouraging, just because I'm 28 and I've gotten enough of that. Like, it's, at this point, it's more entertaining. Like, what's the crazy thing that this dude's gonna say today? Like, I'm excited to see what comes out of this guy's mouth because it might be new and interesting. We also got a comment the other day on our Tiny Desk submission. We have this song called "What a Waste" that we co-wrote with Mary Bragg, and it's our most like, I would say it's our most out there, like kind of, we've written songs in the past that are like kind of protesty, but this one is like probably the most. And this guy left a comment that said, "Oh, to be so young and already making easy listening music for Midwestern housewives." So we just posted the comment, and we're like calling all Midwestern housewives, like, "Come check out our Tiny Desk video." Like, you just have to laugh because people are going to be mad, and
wow.
What can you really do? You can't change that. All you can do is control how you react to it. And like, you can't like, if there are some people who like completely pull away from social media. Props to them. Like, we've never had so much criticism that I felt like I was gonna, you know, collapse in on myself. We've had like the occasional comment. We've been really lucky. But, you know, like there are comments. At the end of the day, you just call out the behavior that's unacceptable and you try to do it in a way that serves you, gives you joy. But also, like, you know, hopefully is a teaching lesson. It's not always your job to carry like the educational labor for somebody else, but like also we live in a society and change is slow. I see the narrative changing every day, but you know, it's good to just have some things in your pocket, just some, you know, little comebacks in your pocket, just in case somebody says something really weird, and you know, deal with it appropriately.
Yeah, the great thing to do is to just like ask them to repeat it again and say, "I'm sorry, could you explain
What'd you say?
Like, I
don't get the joke. What's the
say
joke?
it again."
What'd you say? Yeah, like pretending that it's a joke that you're just too stupid to understand, and then watching them try to like, "Oh, it's funny because it's sexist," you know, like it's yeah. Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's like some strategic non-violent communication right there. You know?
Yeah, there's no passive aggression. It's just all aggression.
Just let them hang themselves. That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so in those times when you've written those songs that have had, sort of an activism or political bent to it, was it, did you set out like, I'm going to write a political song, or was it just more so like you're writing about your lives, and so that's an aspect of your life you're dealing with, and so you're going to put that out there? Like, how does that work in your mind when you're doing these things?
Most of the time, so that was a co-write. So the process for that is more like the three of us get together, whoever we're writing with, we'll get together and we'll just talk for a while, because it's not something that we often do to just jump immediately into writing. Like typically you like make coffee and then you all talk about what's going on in your lives. And like, I think all of us were just kind of going through this like feeling of like, oh my God, there's always like, some other thing that's falling apart on this periphery and then on the greater periphery. And like, how do we reconcile our feelings around that? Like, how do we have any control over anything when it feels like all the things that are, falling apart are outside of our control to some extent and are more in the control of like powerful people. So, that's how that song came about, was all of us just talking about it and trying to figure out how to process those feelings. And I think that's kind of the spirit of songwriting too, is like really it comes down to just processing feelings, especially for those of us like who are introverted and don't always know how to do it just in a regular conversation. I think that's the purpose of writing, is to be another vehicle for that, for communicating. So that's like the process for that,
That's exactly it. Like, I think the co-writes are little time capsules of what's going on at the moment. I mean, I go back and listen to a lot of the co-writes with Tom that we were doing during lockdown, and so many of those songs were about the house, like your house, your home, being isolated, like being fearful of the future, because we would use those co-writes to like talk about current events and like what was going on that week in the news, or like reflecting, instead of just holding all that in, like reflecting it and bouncing off of other people, and sometimes finding metaphor for how to represent those feelings, but sometimes talking literally about what's going on in the news. And I think that is definitely a trait of like some of the co-writes recently, because that's not something I always do in my own writing necessarily. I mean, in the past, like Sav has a song called "The Heavy Flag" that we used for a big Get Out the Boat campaign in 2018.
We co-wrote "How Many Hands" together, and that was after a call I had with Tom Paxton, where I called him up, and it was during like peak like water crisis. I mean, that's still ongoing, so just to put that out there. But also, like when we were writing it, I remember calling him up and being like, how do we write a protest song that people will actually want to listen to and won't feel like it's preaching at them? And he's like, well, you just need to write like somebody else in the room. Like, you can't be telling people from a pedestal like how things are messed up. You have to be part of that community and talking to each other about it. And so I think like he's written some of the most incredible protest songs out there, and like that's sort of what folk music really comes down to too. There's a lot of folk songs that are about changing the narrative and making real action take place. But with that song, "How Many Hands" in particular, I remember it's just being like, the refrain is, how many hands does it take to get a grip? And I think that's really just the way to come at it, is like, we have to come together to make real action and make real change happen. And that's also kind of what we did with Heavy Flag, but with What a Waste too. It's very, I would say there's a more like, how would you describe it, Kate?
Well, I mean, What a Waste started out by, I think we were all sitting at Sav's living room with Mary, and we were like, God dang, I'm so tired, and like everything just feels like throwing, spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. Like, it just feels like we're in these repetitive cycles without change. And that could be like in our personal lives, where like why, like for that week, actually, I had to change my brake pads in my car because they were like, I had let it go so long that my car was just making horrible, horrible loud squeaking noises. And I was like, geez, like, what's the point of like, we're like buying stuff just to watch it like get worn out again and kind of getting burnt out again, sort of cycles of burnout. And then at one point, we kind of decided like, we're just like talking about ourselves so much, like we should open this up into a broader context. And we're like, what is really a waste? Like all the billionaires just feeding money to their ego when they could be like making more positive change for people.
Yeah, there's some call out lines in that song, but yeah, Kate's brake pad line made it into it just because it's an apt metaphor,
Yeah,
it's real life.
It goes into the song.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes me think of that. I don't know if you back before it was kind of the hellscape it's become. When on Twitter they had that account, it was has Jeff Bezos cured homelessness today? Or no, world hunger today, or something like that. There's a calculation. There's actually a number, like a dollar amount of how much it would take to feed everybody in the world, and he has more money than that. And so every day it was just like, and today Jeff Bezos has chosen not to cure world hunger. And then they would include facts and statistics and stuff. But that
it's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those people in particular are also, like, not to go like completely on the end, but both people are just so out of touch with reality too. Like you read these interviews with them and it's just like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm building like an infinity clock in my basement. And I'm like, bro, like literally like anything that matters. Like,
yep.
It just like makes me so mad.
Yep. It is frustrating for sure. But what can you do? Just we make
songs,
good art, and try to change things through messages.
Right, easy listening music for Midwestern housewives about it. That's what you do.
I still cannot believe that. That is, I'm gonna have to find that comment on there just to see it for real, because that is
it's so good.
It's on our
we
Facebook
posted
page.
Straight up. It's posted on our Facebook page just because we had to highlight such a beautiful work of art.
That's wow.
It's so good.
So another thing that I find very very unique about you guys is you've been playing together, and if I'm correct on this, you've been this band really since high school, right? This has been a long time thing.
Since we were 16, 15, 16. So we're 27, 28 now. Yeah, like 12 years. Kate, you want to get into that?
I mean,
I can't.
Was there ever a even like a path towards something else? I mean, starting that as early as you did, or what does that look like?
I think there was kind of a moment of truth at 18. We like auditioned for a couple of music colleges, and Kate got a presidential scholarship to Berkeley, so she would have had a full ride for like 4 years. And then I also got a scholarship to Belmont, so that was 2 different locations. And then at the same time, we were offered a production deal, which would have just had us immediately making music and like doing it for a living rather than going to school for it. And so there was like this, we only had like 24 hours. Kate had 24 hours to decide, really, because you couldn't defer the scholarship that she had. And so it was like you had 24 hours basically to decide if you wanted to do this for a living or if you wanted to go to school and figure out how to do this for a living. And I think that was the very moment of truth moment for the Accidentals. It was kind of like one of the defining moments of our career, I would say.
Yeah. I definitely would not. It would have changed a ton if we were trying to do long distance from 2 different schools. And yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that was a big moment. It was kind of funny because we were just at this conference, this music conference called Folk Alliance International, and we were like getting ready to do this video session, and the production crew was there. It's actually a really cool YouTube series called Salt Lake Sessions. So we were like filming this video session, and we were talking about that story, and I was like, yeah, like I can't believe I said no to that, to free school for 4 years. And my boyfriend was going to school there at the time. And then I was like, but it's fine because he dropped out after a year. Like everyone drops out of Berkeley, like, no big deal. And then the guy, one of the producers on the YouTube series was like, oh, hey, I used to be the president of Berkeley. And I gave you that scholarship. He's like, because they only give out like 1 or 2 of those a year. And so he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, crap. But I mean, to Berkeley's testament, like people who go there want a career in music. And my boyfriend dropped out because he got a gig touring in a rock band that he auditioned for that he met at Berkeley. And people like, you make those connections when you're at school, and you learn from your teachers, you learn things about music, you learn things about life. But we had that same experience getting through the production deal, and touring, like playing this circuit of venues across, literally across like all 50 states. You meet people who teach you so many life lessons, and we met so many musicians who changed the way we thought about music, producers who changed the way we thought about recording. So we got a very similar experience, but we were able to do it as the accidentals and keep our connection. So anyway, yeah, I just thought that was a funny story of me like shooting myself in the foot in front of a president of Berkeley.
Because Kate never says anything negative about anybody. So then the one time she does, like the guy in the room.
Did you ask him if the scholarship was still available?
I should have. Oh my God, that'd be hilarious.
Oh man.
So how did your, rewinding, and how did your families feel about this, especially when you're both turning down, significant, I guess, quote unquote, responsible avenues to be like, no, we're going to go make music together. Like,
I mean, they were happy not to spend the college bill, that's for sure.
Yeah,
right.
Also, they were very supportive.
Also, yeah, all of our parents are musicians, like literally all of them. So like both our dads are piano players, and both our moms are vocalists. But my parents, they have like different backgrounds. So my parents met in Nashville playing music, and they're both writers too. And kind of weirdly, we're like in the country world for a minute. And my mom was like an R&B vocalist too. So they had like this moment where they they had me, and then after about 5 years of living in Nashville, we moved to Northern Michigan. But like I think they always knew that there would be like this moment where I came into music, because I was already very, I was always like singing some made up song or something. But also coming up around music too, like it was kind of an infectious thing. But yeah, I don't think they were surprised by any means when, Kate and I got together, and they were like, oh yeah, you guys should do something with this. You guys could, succeed with this. So they've been super supportive, like the most supportive with our careers. Yeah, they've pretty much adopted Katie too. Like we're just like the closest thing to be like sisters without being sisters at this point. And yeah, when we were like, yeah, I think we're gonna take this production deal, they didn't bat an eye. They were like, yeah, that's the move. Like you can always go back to college.
They helped us look over the contract. They were like, okay, let's make sure you do it right. That's kind of the nice supportive thing about our parents. And also just felt like we had a really good supportive community in Northern Michigan as well. So there were musicians who took us under their wing and were like, hey, come tour and play violin and cello with us. And also, festivals and venues and house concerts and all sorts of places, and people who, I don't know, they just made us feel like, it wasn't like, oh, we were going to go to New York City and get a deal and hit the big time. I feel like we had a fairly realistic view of, you can be a professional musician. It's not like some crazy weird thing. It takes a lot of work. It's just like any other job where you need to put time in, you need to take responsibility. It's essentially owning a small business on top of artistic pursuit. And so I feel like we were pretty lucky, like, to see people in our community doing that, and have these positive sort of role models. So for us, we try to keep it realistic. We weren't ever like, oh, let's go get famous. We were like, let's play music for money and make things.
Yeah. Well, I think it does make a huge difference when your family comes from a creative background, or a musical background in particular. I had Miles Nielsen was in here last week, and his dad's Rick Nielsen, Cheap Trick. And so for him, it was like, well, my dad had no place to tell me I can't go try to, become a musician, because like, what's he going to say, So,
right.
So how early in your life did you actually start picking up instruments? You said you were singing a lot when you were a kid, but when did you actually
Yeah.
sit down and start turning it into, a
For
craft?
me, like, so Kate and I both had this opportunity growing up in Traverse City. We have like a local music shop called Marshall Music there, and they have this program. I actually ended up doing it full circle when I was like 16 or 17, but the music store will bring all these instruments for kids to try out around like 10 or 11. And back then, when we first did it, they used to grade you on your first attempt, which I think is insane. So, like, I tried a bunch of instruments that day. I tried flute, and they wrote like poor on a piece of paper. So I was like, okay, not that one. And I tried like drums and saxophone. All of them was just like, no. And then for violin, I was instructed to pick it up, and they like helped arrange my hand right on the strings. And then I had to play run, pony, run, like that rhythm on it. And I got decent on that. So violin was the instrument that I took away from that. And that was around like 10. And then by the time I was 12, like I was already like, I played it kind of obsessively. So I really wanted to like join my parents' band. That was like my whole, that was like a goal. I wanted to like join a band. And so my parents started this like folk band to help me get into the improvisational world. And through that, like I went to all these festivals, and I kind of came up under the wings of like a lot of Celtic fiddle players. I went to jazz jams, and like just, I mean, I was horrible, but like, I'm like 12 on violin and trying to figure it out. And like, so I came up under like a whole community of musicians that my parents introduced me to. And also my parents were major influences, just being like, yeah, try this, like, don't be afraid, like, go for it. But that's all I did for a long time until I met Katie. And then Katie was a huge influence on getting me to play other instruments and to write songs, because I kind of decided that I wasn't very good at those things without ever trying it. But watching her do those things, I was like, okay, maybe there's a shot that I could possibly do something like that. So I ended up picking up guitar and teaching myself, and then from there bass, and then it's just been kind of nonstop. Anything with strings, I feel like they're all cousins of each other. So when you learn one, you learn two by accident. And so it's just been this kind of long train of playing string instruments ever since, and writing songs. And yeah, that all started around like 12, and then again at 16, and now again at 28, I'm still learning new instruments all the time. So, what about you, Kate?
Let's see. Well, I started playing recorder in 5th grade.
Classic.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. I don't know if it really went much further than that. Maybe like trying to take piano lessons from my dad and failing to pay attention or retain anything. I had a lot of failures. I tried playing acoustic guitar when I was 10, and it hurt my fingers so bad that I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So the first thing that actually stuck for me was cello. And that was sort of an accident too, because my first choice was saxophone, and I was also considering trombone.
Oh my God.
And I guess they just really needed a cellist, because I was the only one in the orchestra for like 3 years, maybe. So it was just me holding down the mid low range, and I really was drawn to it. It was great for me because, like, it was something that I felt like gave me a lot of, an outlet for creativity and for self-expression. And I was a really shy kid in high school and horrible at sports. And so being in orchestra was really important for me. And I was also really like messing around with, at that time, my finger strength, I'd built up calluses. And so I felt like I'm going to go back to guitar, and it worked. And so I was kind of doing guitar and cello at the same time, and they were both feeding into each other. And so I was trying to play cello like a guitar and playing weird indie rock songs on it and singing, and kind of trying to do the same with guitar. I joined like jazz band and was playing those two instruments as much as possible. And then met Sav, and she was also one of the sort of like alternative people in in orchestra. She had a blue violin, and I was like, whoa, that person's really cool. Like, so we would stay after school and play covers of Led Zeppelin and MGMT and stuff on violin and cello. And yeah, so those were the two things that's really where I started. And yeah, I owe a lot to our public schools, because if I hadn't played cello, like who knows if I would have really gotten back into guitar.
Well, that's what drives so much of our like initiatives to go back to those places too. Cause like on top of those experiences, we also had a group called the Moxie Strings come in and teach a workshop. And they had like an electric violin and the same electric cello that Kate plays today. And that was such a huge influence on us to know like, hey, you can like make a living rocking out on orchestra instruments in like a live show capacity.
Yeah.
You know, that was, and also two women, like it was just like so influential for us. We were like, okay, let's give it a shot, you know? So like that kind of thing, we try to go back and do workshops at schools that accomplish a similar thing. We're like, hey, like this is a thing, like you can make a living off of this, not just like if you want to play live shows, but also session work, you know, like Ariana Grande has albums with viola solos on it. Like it can be done. Like Lizzo's playing a flute on her pop songs, you know, like anybody can bring a classical instrument back into an environment that, especially in today's age, that maybe you wouldn't always see it happening in. So stick with it, you know, is kind of the message that we have.
I love that you're taking that and sharing that back to you know the next generation. That's awesome. And also, I just had when you mentioned saxophone and trombone, Katie, I had this brief vision of an alternate universe where there was the accidental ska punk band. So, or maybe that could be one of the albums. Maybe
it's called the Axolotls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, I'm in. Let's do this.
It's not too late.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, so my only request, if you ever do that, I don't know if you've ever seen the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones live.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, they have the boss tone and he's just the guy, like the hype man, right? He doesn't play anything. He just stands up there and dances around and hypes up the crowd. I'm not a musician. I can't play a thing. I've always wanted that job though. So if you start the accidental ska punk band, even for just one tour, I would like to volunteer my services as your boss tone or your accidental or whatever you want to call me. I'll just get the crowd hyped. So
dude, that's hilarious. No, I love that.
Tired.
We did go on tour with a band called Moon Hooch once. They were a trio.
I love those guys. Yeah,
we toured with them like for literally like a month, and it was kind of funny because like you have like two saxophone players and a drummer rocking out, and then like right before them you have like two orchestral people playing with a drummer. So that was kind of the vibe, but it was a very different show, I would say.
I love that stuff. You know, I mentioned that Thunder Snow event that I went to, and the first year I went, there was a band there that was it was a drummer and a tuba player.
Oh man. I'm a sucker for stuff like that.
I know, right? And then there was one year where I think it was a drummer and a sax player. It was a band called Evacuate the Earth, and the noises they made were just awe-inspiring.
You know, I think like as orchestral people, we kind of have a fascination with horn sections and stuff. Like I know that we're huge fans of like bands like Rebel Bucket and stuff, but also there's a band called Turbo Street Funk that we used to collaborate with. They're Canadian, so it's hard for everybody to like meet up, but they came to Bell's once and we formed the way that we met was at a Canadian folk festival where I don't know if this is like a thing, but Canadian folk festivals love to just throw together two bands and then have them improvise a set together. It's happened twice now.
Okay, all right.
And so we were thrown together with Turbo Street Funk and we had to like improvise an entire set. So we did, and we ended up becoming really good friends through that. So then we just decided to do the same thing at Bell's Brewing Company, where they played a set, we played a set, and then we just got together and we had like a horn section for a hot second, and that was so cool. I mean, just to have like such a different sound on Accidentals music was just so exciting. So yeah, we're a sucker for that kind of stuff. We love it.
That's awesome. Yeah. The collaboration thing, it's fun watching musicians kind of figure that stuff out in real time too. It's you know.
Whew. We're about to do the same thing again at Rock by the Sea with Patty Pershela and I believe Megan Slinkard. So yeah, looking forward to that. We've already started building a playlist of songs. It's got Heart on it, which I'm really, really excited about. Ooh. There's some Fleetwood Mac on it too. It's gonna be cool.
I love it. Well, we are at about an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. So is there, you've got the new album in the works, and then, you've got this tour coming up in April. Anything else on the horizons for you guys?
I'd say follow our Patreon, patreon.com/theaccidentals.
Yeah.
It's a really great spot to get some of the first, so our Time Out 3 album is posted there already. The album that's not going to come out till fall the mixes are already up there just because we really work closely with them. We started it right before our trailer was stolen, like literally January of 2019, maybe a week before the trailer theft. And then when people were asking us, how do we help? We were just directing them to the Patreon because they could follow closely, and we could also get, financial support to make sure that we would stay afloat. And it still keeps us afloat today. Like during the pandemic, we relied on that. And we also have like a bunch of like crazy things that we do there. So we have like a book club. We have a throwback album review that the patrons pick the album, everybody listens to it, and then we come together and we talk about it once a month. I host trivia night, which is a lot of fun. And we have like all different, we have a tour blog that we keep where we post once a week and talk a little bit about where we've been, what we've been up to. It's a really hands-on place. So I would recommend like people, if you're looking to kind of get a behind the scenes and know what we're up to when we're not always posting about it, that's a great place to be.
Yeah, definitely. I say on this show and in my writing often, probably annoyingly often to my listeners, but give musicians your money. If you want to support independent music, you gotta give them money. That's a thing you've got to do. So.
Yeah, because we're, you're right. We're independent. We're DIYing it and we're distributing. We're using a distribution company, but we're not on a label. And we're kind of okay with that right now. Patreon is definitely keeping us afloat in that regard, but it's also really nice to be independent. So yeah, it is helpful. But also Patreon is also just a blast. Like it's super fun. We really get a kick out of like the books that we read, the albums we listen to. It feels like, sorry, not to go on a tangent, but like in particular, the throwback album reviews are super helpful because there are bands that we've never had the chance to listen to, because either like their time was before and then we came to now and there's maybe like a modern day equivalent that we're listening to. But like, I remember I hadn't listened to a Ricky Lee Jones album before until that, or a bunch of other artists like, Jackson Brown, like all these different people I had never listened to before until we started doing this. And now it feels like homework, but fun. But almost like we're earning our cred a little bit just by knowing like these amazing, incredible influences. So yeah, join in. It's super fun.
Yeah. And I will say, especially if you're someone that laments the often frustrating world of social media. I mean, Patreon's like it's a great gathering community space for something that you all love, and it's all there for positive reasons. There's
Yes.
Hopefully not much in the way of negativity. So yeah.
None. Yeah. None.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to say, as you're doing your throwbacks, a really good read I want to suggest to you. I'm drawing a blank on the author's name, but there's a book called Major Labels, and it's a fascinating book. The author, I can see it, but I don't want to say it because I'm going to butcher it. But it's his initials are KS. I'll email it to you guys after the show. Yeah. But it's called Major Labels, and he basically does a speed run through the 7 major genres of American music. So it's hip hop, soul, rock, folk, punk, rap. Like it's all these. It's this great list, and it's fascinating because in the end, like we were talking at the beginning, it's sort of like, there's really not that much difference. I mean, there is, but there isn't. And you see his journey through these major artists, and it's a great way to kind of, like you said, gain your credit and sort of check some of those boxes maybe you missed growing up. So yeah.
I just found it. I'm gonna go to so today's voting day here in Nashville for the primaries, so we're gonna go do that next. But luckily for me, it's at my local library, so I can now go pick that up.
There you go. All right.
YMCA.
Yeah.
Play some basketball.
Go work out. Yeah.
There you go. That's where mine is too. So, all right. Well, did either of you have anything else before we sign off?
I think we're all set. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed talking.
Yeah, good, good. I'm glad we finally got you on the show, and hopefully we can get you down to my neck of the woods to play sometime. We've got some great venues here at the Acorn or the Vickers.
Oh,
or,
we love the
Love the
Acorn.
Acorn.
We
yeah,
played
you've been
there a
there before.
bunch.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's a favorite place of mine. So,
Three Oaks, baby.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So,
There you
all
go.
right. Well, you two enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, take care. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. You have been listening to Anywhere the Needle Drops, a product of Red Chuck Productions. Be sure to keep tabs on everything going on with this show and everything else Red Chuck over at redchuckproductions.com or by following us at Red Chuck Productions on social media. Special thanks to Hero Jr. for our theme music. You can check them out, listen to their songs, and see where they're going to be over at herojrmusic.com. That's HEROJRMUSIC.com. Also, special thanks to Paul Clemson, our sound engineer and producer. And while you're at it, make sure you visit the websites and band camps and shows of all of our guests. If you want local music, if you want independent music, or any kind of art, you've got to support them. So give musicians and artists your money. We will see you at the next episode. Until then, here's to life.
Would I